There is a lie most people believe about success. It's the lie of the big moment, the viral breakthrough, the overnight transformation, the sudden leap from ordinary to extraordinary. We are surrounded by stories of dramatic change. The entrepreneur who made it in a year, the athlete who became a champion, the artist who suddenly went viral. Social media magnifies these moments until they look like lightning strikes. Instant, explosive, magical. But what we don't see is the quiet, invisible mountain of small wins that came before the spotlight. We don't see the mornings when they woke up tired and chose discipline anyway. We don't see the tiny improvements made in silence. We don't see the days when progress felt slow, boring, and almost meaningless. And because we don't see it, we begin to believe something dangerous. If my progress isn't dramatic, it doesn't count. This belief silently destroys dreams. It convinces people to quit after a few days at the gym. It whispers to writers who stop after 3 pages. It discourages students who think one bad grade means failure. It makes entrepreneurs abandon ideas before momentum even begins. People don't fail because they lack talent. They don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they underestimate the power of small daily wins. This audiobook exists to change that forever, because the truth is simple, powerful, and life-changing. Massive success is built on microscopic victories. Every confident person you admire once struggled with doubt. Every disciplined person once fought laziness. Every successful person once felt stuck. What separated them from everyone else was not a giant leap. It was the decision to win the day. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Small wins are magical because they create momentum. And momentum is the force that transforms effort into identity. One small workout becomes a fitness habit. One page becomes a book. One idea becomes a business. One brave step becomes a new life. This is the hidden formula of success. Win small, win daily, win forever. Yet many people struggle with discipline. They feel trapped in cycles of motivation and burnout. One day they feel unstoppable. The next day they feel exhausted and discouraged. They wait for inspiration to appear before taking action. And when inspiration disappears, progress stops. This audiobook will teach you a different way to live, a way that does not depend on motivation, a way that does not require perfection, a way that replaces chaos with clarity. Because discipline is not a prison, it is freedom. Freedom from procrastination, freedom from overwhelm, freedom from the constant guilt of unfinished goals. When you build discipline through daily wins, life becomes simpler, decisions become easier, confidence becomes natural, progress becomes inevitable. You stop asking, "Will I succeed?" and start saying, "I'm becoming the person who succeeds." Inside this audiobook, you will discover why the idea of overnight success is a myth, how small wins rewire your brain for progress, the psychology behind momentum and confidence, how to stay disciplined when motivation disappears, why consistency beats intensity every time, how to defeat procrastination with tiny actions, how to design a system that guarantees daily progress, how persistence compounds into extraordinary results. Most importantly, you will learn how to become someone who keeps going. Because success is not about doing everything perfectly, it is about doing something consistently. By the end of this journey, you will no longer chase massive change. You will build it, one day at a time. And one day you will look back and realize something incredible. The small wins you once thought were insignificant were actually transforming your entire life. This is your invitation to begin, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, let's start stacking your daily wins. Welcome to Limitless Listening, your home for powerful motivational audiobooks. and life-changing ideas. This channel is created for thinkers, dreamers, builders, and anyone who wants more from life. Here, we explore the lessons that inspire growth, discipline, confidence, and real transformation. So wherever you are right now, relaxing, commuting, studying, or simply taking a quiet moment for yourself, this is your time to focus, reflect, and grow. Let this audiobook be more than something you listen to. Let it be something you live. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and get ready to step into a journey of daily progress and unstoppable momentum. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Myth of Overnight Success. In a world driven by instant gratification, viral fame, and highlight reels, the idea of overnight success has become one of the most seductive myths of our time. We see someone rise to prominence, seemingly out of nowhere, a business owner who suddenly becomes a millionaire, an artist whose work goes viral, or an individual who appears to achieve greatness in a blink. From the outside, it looks effortless, almost magical. One moment they are unknown, the next they are everywhere. But what we don't see is far more important than what we do. The truth is simple, yet often ignored. There is no such thing as overnight success. What appears sudden is usually the result of years, sometimes decades, of unseen effort, quiet discipline, repeated failure, and relentless persistence. The myth exists because we only witness the moment success becomes visible, not the long journey that made it possible. Human beings are naturally drawn to stories of rapid transformation. We want to believe that success can happen quickly because it offers hope. It suggests that our own breakthrough could be just around the corner. This belief is comforting, but also dangerous. The illusion is created by selective storytelling. When someone achieves something remarkable, their story is often simplified into a clean, compelling narrative. They had an idea, took action, and succeeded. The years of struggle, doubt, and setbacks are compressed into a few sentences or left out entirely. Imagine watching a movie that begins at the climax. You see the hero standing victorious, but you never witness the training, the failures, or the obstacles they overcame. That's how we often perceive success in real life, without context, without depth, without truth. The hidden years. Behind every overnight success lies what can be called the hidden years. These are the periods of time when no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no rewards seem visible. During these years, people are learning, experimenting, failing, adjusting, and trying again. They are building skills, developing resilience, and refining their craft. These are the moments when progress feels slow, when motivation fades, and when quitting seems like the easiest option. The hidden years are not glamorous. They are filled with uncertainty and self-doubt. You question whether your efforts will ever pay off. You wonder if you're wasting your time. You compare yourself to others who seem to be moving faster, and yet you keep going. This is where real success is built. The role of consistency. One of the most overlooked factors in success is consistency, not intensity, not bursts of motivation, but the quiet, steady commitment to show up every day. Consistency doesn't feel powerful in the moment. In fact, it often feels boring. Doing the same thing repeatedly without immediate results can be frustrating. But this is exactly what creates long-term progress. Think of success as a compound effect. Small actions, repeated over time, begin to build momentum. A single effort may seem insignificant, but thousands of small efforts create something extraordinary. The problem is that most people quit before this compounding effect has time to work. They expect results too quickly, and when those results don't appear, they assume something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. They simply stopped too soon. The pain of delayed gratification. We live in an age where everything is fast. Information is instant. Entertainment is immediate. Results are expected now. This has conditioned us to seek quick rewards and avoid long waiting periods. Success, however, operates on a completely different timeline. It requires delayed gratification, the ability to work toward a goal without immediate reward. This is uncomfortable. It demands patience, discipline, and trust in a future that is not guaranteed. Most people struggle with this. They want to see results quickly, to validate their efforts. When that validation doesn't come, they lose motivation. But those who succeed understand something deeper. The reward is not just the outcome, but the process itself. They learn to find meaning in the work, even when no one else notices. Failure as a foundation. Another reason the myth of overnight success is misleading is that it ignores failure. In reality, failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of it. Every successful person has faced setbacks. They have made mistakes, experienced rejection, and encountered obstacles that seemed impossible to overcome. These moments are not exceptions, they are essential. Failure teaches lessons that success cannot. It forces you to adapt, to grow, and to become stronger. It reveals weaknesses and pushes you to improve. But failure is often hidden from public view. People don't showcase their struggles in the same way they showcase their achievements. As a result, we see success without understanding the failures that made it possible. The comparison trap. The myth of overnight success is amplified by comparison. When you see someone else achieving something quickly, it's easy to feel behind. You start questioning your own progress. You wonder why it's taking you so long. But this comparison is flawed. You are comparing your behind-the-scenes journey to someone else's highlight moment. You are seeing their results, not their process. You are witnessing the end of their story while you are still in the middle of yours. Everyone's path is different. Some people move quickly in certain areas, while others take longer. What matters is not the speed, but the direction. Progress is progress, no matter how slow it may seem. The importance of persistence. If there is one quality that separates those who succeed from those who don't, it is persistence. Talent matters, intelligence matters, opportunities matter, but none of these can replace the power of persistence. Persistence is the ability to keep going when things get hard. It's the decision to continue despite doubt, fear, and uncertainty. It's the refusal to quit, even when results are not immediately visible. Most people give up not because they are incapable, but because they lose patience. They expect success to come quickly, and when it doesn't, they move on to something else. But those who persist eventually reach a tipping point. Their efforts begin to compound, their skills improve, opportunities start to appear, and suddenly, from the outside, it looks like they succeeded overnight. But in reality, they didn't. They simply stayed long enough for success to find them. Redefining success. To break free from the myth of overnight success, we need to redefine what success actually means. Success is not a single moment. It is not a sudden breakthrough or a viral achievement. It is a process, a journey of continuous growth and improvement. It is the daily effort to become better than you were yesterday. It is the willingness to learn from mistakes and keep moving forward. It is the discipline to show up, even when you don't feel like it. When you shift your focus from outcomes to process, everything changes. You stop chasing quick results and start building something meaningful. You begin to value the journey, not just the destination. Embracing the long road. The truth is, the long road is the only road that leads to lasting success. There are no shortcuts that can replace the value of time, effort, and experience. Quick wins may come and go, but true success is built slowly. This doesn't mean the journey will always be hard. There will be moments of progress, breakthroughs, and victories along the way. But these moments are the result of consistent effort, not sudden luck. When you embrace the long road, you free yourself from unrealistic expectations. You stop rushing the process and start trusting it. The reality behind the myth. So why does the myth of overnight success persist? Because it's easier to believe in a simplified story than to accept a complex truth. It's more appealing to think that success can happen quickly than to acknowledge the years of effort it requires. But believing in this myth comes at a cost. It creates unrealistic expectations, leads to frustration, and causes people to give up too soon. The reality is not as glamorous, but it is far more empowering. You don't need luck. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need to be extraordinary from the start. What you need is commitment. Commitment to your goals. Commitment to your growth. Commitment to showing up every day, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because something is always happening. Every effort you make is building something beneath the surface. Every step you take is moving you forward, even if you can't see it yet. The myth of overnight success is just that, a myth. Behind every visible achievement is a story of persistence, discipline, failure, and growth. The journey is long, often difficult, and rarely linear, but it is also where the real transformation happens. If you want to succeed, stop looking for shortcuts. Stop comparing your journey to others. Stop expecting immediate results. Instead, focus on what you can control: your effort, your consistency, and your mindset. Understand that success is not something that happens to you overnight. It is something you build day by day, choice by choice. And one day, after years of unseen work, people may look at you and say, "You got lucky. You became successful overnight." But you will know the truth. It was never overnight. It was every single day that no one else saw. Chapter 2: Why Small Wins Change Everything. When people think about success, they often imagine big, life-changing moments: landing a dream job, achieving financial freedom, completing a major goal, or reaching a long-awaited milestone. These moments feel powerful, dramatic, and worthy of celebration. They are the visible peaks of achievement that others admire. But what most people fail to realize is that these big moments are not where success truly begins. Success is built on small wins, quiet, consistent, often unnoticed victories that happen daily. The decision to wake up early when you feel like sleeping in. The choice to work on your goal instead of scrolling through distractions. The effort to improve just a little bit more than yesterday. These moments may seem insignificant on their own, but together they create something extraordinary. Small wins are not just steps towards success, they are the foundation of it. Human beings are wired to respond to progress. Even the smallest sense of forward movement can boost motivation, increase confidence, and reinforce positive behavior. When you achieve a small win, your mind registers it as success. This creates a sense of accomplishment, which fuels your desire to continue. You feel more capable, more in control, and more willing to take the next step. On the other hand, when progress feels absent, motivation begins to fade. You start to question your efforts. Doubt creeps in, the journey feels endless, and quitting becomes tempting. This is why small wins matter so much. They create visible progress. Even when the bigger goal feels far away, small wins remind you that you are moving forward. They turn an overwhelming journey into manageable steps. Breaking down big goals. One of the main reasons people struggle to achieve their goals is that those goals feel too large. When you focus only on the end result, it can feel intimidating. The distance between where you are and where you want to be seems impossible to cross. This creates hesitation, procrastination, and fear. Small wins solve this problem. They break down big goals into smaller, actionable steps. Instead of focusing on the entire journey, you focus on what you can do today. This makes the process less overwhelming and more achievable. For example, instead of thinking about writing an entire book, you focus on writing one page. Instead of aiming to completely transform your life overnight, you focus on improving one habit. These small steps may seem minor, but they create momentum, and momentum is everything. Building momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. Once it starts, it becomes easier to keep going. Small wins are what create that momentum. Each small victory builds on the previous one. You start to develop a rhythm. Your actions become more consistent. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. Over time, this momentum reduces resistance. Tasks that once required effort now feel automatic. Habits begin to form. Progress accelerates, but momentum doesn't come from occasional bursts of effort. It comes from consistent action. This is why small wins are more effective than big, inconsistent efforts. A single large effort may feel productive, but without consistency, it fades quickly. Small, repeated actions, on the other hand, build lasting momentum. The confidence effect. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And one of the most effective ways to build confidence is through small wins. Every time you accomplish something, no matter how small, you send a message to yourself: I can do this. This reinforces a positive self-image. You begin to trust yourself more. You start to believe in your ability to succeed. This confidence is not based on empty motivation or external validation. It is grounded in real evidence, your own actions and achievements. As small wins accumulate, your confidence grows. You begin to take on bigger challenges. You push beyond your comfort zone. You become more resilient in the face of setbacks. Confidence, in this sense, is not a starting point. It is a result, and it starts with small wins. Changing your identity. One of the most powerful ways small wins change your life is by shifting your identity. Your identity is how you see yourself. It influences your behavior, your decisions, and your beliefs about what is possible for you. When you consistently achieve small wins, you begin to see yourself differently. If you write a little every day, you start to see yourself as a writer. If you exercise regularly, you begin to see yourself as someone who values health. If you consistently work toward your goals, you start to see yourself as disciplined and focused. This shift in identity is powerful because it changes your behavior at a deeper level. Instead of forcing yourself to take action, you begin to act in alignment with who you believe you are. Your habits become a reflection of your identity, not just your goals. And all of this begins with small, consistent actions. Overcoming procrastination. Procrastination is often misunderstood. It is not simply laziness. It is usually a response to feeling overwhelmed or uncertain. When a task feels too big or too difficult, your mind tries to avoid it. You delay, distract yourself, or find excuses. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. Small wins provide a solution. By focusing on a very small, manageable action, you reduce resistance. The task no longer feels overwhelming. It becomes something you can start immediately. And once you start, something interesting happens. Action creates motivation. You don't need to feel motivated to begin. The act of starting generates momentum, which then creates motivation. This is why small wins are so effective. They help you overcome the hardest part, which is getting started. The psychological reward system. Small wins also tap into your brain's natural reward system. Each time you accomplish something, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel good. This creates a positive association with the action you just took. Over time, this reinforces the behavior. You begin to associate effort with reward, which makes it easier to stay consistent. This is why celebrating small wins is important. It strengthens this positive feedback loop. It reminds your brain that progress is rewarding, which increases the likelihood that you will continue. Ignoring small wins, on the other hand, can have the opposite effect. If you only focus on big achievements, you miss out on the motivation that comes from daily progress. Resilience through small victories. Life is not a straight path. There will be setbacks, failures, and unexpected challenges. During these times, it's easy to lose motivation and feel discouraged. Small wins can act as anchors during difficult moments. Even when things are not going well, you can still focus on small actions. These actions provide a sense of control and stability. They remind you that progress is still possible, even in challenging circumstances. This builds resilience. Instead of being overwhelmed by setbacks, you learn to keep moving forward in small steps. You develop the ability to adapt, recover, and continue. Resilience is not built in moments of success, it is built in moments of struggle, and small wins make those moments manageable. The compound effect. The true power of small wins lies in their ability to compound over time. Individually, a small action may not seem significant, but when repeated consistently, these actions begin to add up. They create results that are far greater than the sum of their parts. This is similar to how compound interest works. Small, consistent investments grow exponentially over time. The same principle applies to your efforts. Daily habits, repeated over weeks, months, and years, lead to massive transformation. The challenge is that this compounding effect is not immediately visible. In the beginning, progress may seem slow. Results may feel minimal. This is where most people lose patience and give up, but those who continue eventually reach a point where the results become undeniable. What once felt like small, insignificant actions suddenly reveal their true impact. Shifting your focus. To fully benefit from small wins, you need to shift your focus. Instead of measuring success only by big outcomes, start measuring it by daily actions. Focus on what you can control: your effort, your consistency, and your commitment. Ask yourself, did I take a step forward today? Did I stay consistent with my habits? Did I make progress, no matter how small? When you begin to value these small victories, your mindset changes. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. This reduces pressure and increases consistency. You become more patient, more focused, and more resilient. The ripple effect. Small wins don't just impact one area of your life, they create a ripple effect. Improving one habit often leads to improvements in other areas. For example, developing discipline in your daily routine can improve your work, your health, and your relationships. This is because success is not isolated. The habits and mindset you build in one area carry over into others. A small win in one part of your life can create momentum that spreads across multiple areas. Over time, these ripples create a wave of transformation. Big success is made up of small wins. The daily choices, the consistent actions, the quiet efforts, these are what shape your future. They may not feel significant in the moment, but they are building something powerful beneath the surface. If you want to change your life, don't wait for a big breakthrough. Start small. Take one step, then another, then another. Celebrate your progress, no matter how minor it may seem. Trust that these small actions are adding up, even if you can't see the results yet. Because one day, you will look back and realize that everything changed, not because of one big moment, but because of hundreds of small ones. And that is the true power of small wins. They don't just move you forward, they change everything. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful yet underestimated forces in personal growth and success. It is invisible, intangible, and often misunderstood. But once it takes hold, it can transform effort into progress, struggle into rhythm, and discipline into something that feels almost effortless. At its core, momentum is not about speed, it's about continuity. It is the force that keeps you moving forward after you've already started. It's what makes the second step easier than the first, the third easier than the second, and eventually turns action into habit. Momentum reduces resistance, strengthens belief, and creates a natural flow that carries you forward. But before momentum becomes your greatest ally, you must first understand the psychology behind it, how it works, why it's so powerful, and how to build it intentionally. Why starting is the hardest part. Almost every meaningful journey begins with resistance. You feel it when you try to start something new, whether it's working toward a goal, building a habit, or making a change in your life. There's hesitation, doubt, and often a strong urge to delay. This resistance is not a sign of weakness. It's a natural response from your mind. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid uncertainty. Anything unfamiliar or effortful is perceived as a potential risk. So when you try to start something new, your mind pushes back. It prefers comfort, familiarity, and immediate reward. This is why starting feels so difficult. But once you take that first step, something shifts. The resistance begins to weaken. The task no longer feels as intimidating. You move from thinking about action to actually taking action, and that changes everything. Momentum begins with that first step. Action creates motivation. One of the biggest misconceptions about productivity is the belief that motivation comes before action. People often wait to feel ready, inspired, or energized before they begin. They think, once I feel motivated, I'll start. But the truth is the opposite. Motivation is often the result of action, not the cause of it. When you take action, even in a small way, you create a sense of progress. That progress triggers a positive emotional response. You begin to feel more capable, more focused, and more willing to continue. This creates a feedback loop. Action, progress, motivation, more action. This loop is the foundation of momentum. The key insight here is simple but powerful. You don't need motivation to start. You need to start to create motivation. The role of dopamine and reward. Momentum is deeply connected to your brain's reward system. Every time you complete a task or make progress toward a goal, your brain releases a chemical that makes you feel good. This reinforces the behavior and increases the likelihood that you will repeat it. This is why small wins are so effective. They provide frequent rewards that keep you engaged. When you experience these rewards consistently, your brain begins to associate effort with positive outcomes. Tasks that once felt difficult start to feel satisfying. You begin to crave progress. This is the psychological engine of momentum. But there's an important detail. The reward doesn't have to be big. In fact, small, consistent rewards are often more effective than occasional large ones. They keep the cycle going. They keep you moving. Reducing friction. Another key aspect of momentum is the reduction of friction. Friction refers to anything that makes it harder to take action. Mental resistance, distractions, lack of clarity, or even physical barriers. At the beginning of any task, friction is at its highest. You have to overcome uncertainty, make decisions, and push through resistance. But once you start, friction decreases. You're already in motion. The path becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. Your focus improves. Momentum reduces the energy required to continue. This is why it's often said that staying in motion is easier than starting from a standstill. When you stop completely, friction resets. You have to overcome that initial resistance all over again. Consistency, therefore, is not just about discipline. It's about maintaining momentum so that action remains easier over time. The identity shift. Momentum doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you see yourself. When you take consistent action, you begin to build evidence about who you are. You start to identify with your behavior. If you show up every day to work on your goals, you begin to see yourself as disciplined. If you consistently push through challenges, you start to see yourself as resilient. This identity shift is crucial because once your actions align with your identity, everything becomes easier. You no longer rely solely on willpower. Your behavior becomes a reflection of who you believe you are. Momentum reinforces this identity. Each action strengthens the belief. Each step forward makes the next step feel more natural. Over time, what once required effort becomes part of who you are. The danger of losing momentum. While momentum is powerful, it is also fragile. It can take time and effort to build, but it can be lost quickly. A break in consistency, even a small one, can disrupt the flow. Resistance begins to creep back in. Tasks that felt easy suddenly feel harder again. This doesn't mean you failed. It simply means that momentum needs to be rebuilt. The danger lies in letting a small break turn into a complete tawakkuf. When you stop for too long, restarting feels just as difficult as it did in the beginning. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It's better to take small, consistent actions than to rely on occasional bursts of effort, followed by long periods of inactivity. Momentum thrives on continuity. Building momentum intentionally. Momentum is not something that happens by accident. It can be built deliberately. The process begins with small, manageable actions. You don't need to do something big or impressive. In fact, starting small is often more effective because it reduces resistance and increases the likelihood of consistency. Focus on actions that are easy to start, but meaningful enough to move you forward. Then, repeat them. Consistency is what transforms action into momentum. Over time, you can increase the intensity or complexity of your actions. But in the beginning, the goal is simple. Build the habit of showing up. Once momentum is established, growth becomes easier. The emotional impact of momentum. Momentum doesn't just affect your actions, it affects your emotions. When you're in motion, you feel more in control. You experience less stress and less overwhelm. Your focus improves, your confidence grows. You begin to feel aligned with your goals. On the other hand, when momentum is absent, everything feels harder. You may feel stuck, unmotivated, or frustrated. Even simple tasks can feel overwhelming. This emotional difference is significant. Momentum creates a positive upward spiral. It lifts your energy, your mindset, and your performance. And once you experience this state, you begin to understand its true value. The compounding nature of momentum. Momentum, like small wins, compounds over time. Each action builds on the previous one. Each step forward makes the next step easier. Progress accelerates. What once required effort becomes automatic. What once felt slow begins to speed up. This is why momentum can lead to breakthroughs. From the outside, it may look like success happened suddenly, but in reality, it was the result of sustained momentum over time. The effort was consistent, the progress was gradual, and eventually it reached a tipping point. From discipline to flow. At the beginning of any journey, discipline is essential. You have to push yourself to take action. You have to overcome resistance. You have to stay consistent even when it's difficult. But as momentum builds, something changes. Discipline begins to transform into flow. Actions feel more natural. Resistance decreases. You find yourself working with less effort and more focus. What once felt forced now feels automatic. This is the ultimate goal of momentum. Not just to move forward, but to make progress feel easier. Momentum is not about doing more. It's about continuing. It is built through small actions, sustained over time. It grows through consistency, reinforced by progress, and strengthened by belief. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to feel fully prepared. You just need to start. Take one step, then another, then another. Let action create motivation. Let progress build confidence. Let consistency reduce resistance. And as you continue, something powerful will begin to happen. Momentum will take over, and once it does, you will no longer feel like you are forcing yourself forward. You will feel like you are being carried. That is the psychology of momentum, and once you understand it, you can use it to change everything. Chapter 4. Building discipline when motivation fades. Motivation is powerful. It's the spark that gets you started, the surge of energy that makes you feel unstoppable, focused, and ready to take on the world. In moments of high motivation, everything feels possible. You set goals, make plans, and imagine a better version of your life with clarity and excitement. But motivation has a flaw. It doesn't last. No matter how inspired you feel today, there will be days when that energy disappears. Days when you feel tired, distracted, overwhelmed, or simply uninterested. Days when your goals feel distant and your effort feels heavy. And this is where most people fall apart. They rely on motivation to carry them forward. When it fades, so does their progress. They stop showing up. They break their habits. They lose momentum. But those who succeed understand a deeper truth. Motivation starts the journey. Discipline sustains it. The nature of motivation. To build discipline, you must first understand motivation. Motivation is emotional. It is influenced by your mood, your environment, your energy levels, and your circumstances. It can be triggered by inspiration, excitement, or even fear. But because it is emotional, it is also unstable. You cannot control when motivation appears. Some days, you wake up feeling ready to conquer your goals. Other days, you struggle to do even the simplest tasks. This fluctuation is normal. It's part of being human. The mistake is expecting motivation to be constant. When you depend on motivation alone, your actions become inconsistent. You only work when you feel like it. And because feelings change, your progress becomes unpredictable. This is why motivation is not enough. What discipline really means. Discipline is often misunderstood. People think of discipline as harsh, rigid, or restrictive. They imagine forcing themselves to work, pushing through pain, and sacrificing enjoyment. But true discipline is not about punishment. It's about commitment. Discipline is the ability to take action, regardless of how you feel. It is choosing what matters most over what feels easy in the moment. It is aligning your actions with your long-term goals, even when your short-term emotions resist. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. The shift from feeling to decision. The key difference between motivation and discipline lies in one simple shift. Motivation is based on feeling. Discipline is based on decision. When you rely on motivation, you ask yourself, do I feel like doing this? When you rely on discipline, you ask, what needs to be done? This shift changes everything. It removes emotion from the equation. It creates clarity. It gives you control. Instead of waiting for the right mood, you act based on your commitment. And over time, this creates a powerful habit, showing up no matter what. Why discipline feels hard at first. If discipline is so powerful, why is it so difficult to build? Because it requires you to act against your immediate desires. Your mind is naturally drawn to comfort, ease, and instant gratification. Discipline asks you to do the opposite, to choose effort, discomfort, and delayed reward. This creates internal resistance. At the beginning, every disciplined action feels like a struggle. You have to push yourself. You have to override your instincts. You have to fight the urge to quit. But this difficulty is temporary. As you repeat disciplined actions, something changes. The resistance begins to weaken. What once felt hard becomes easier. What once required effort becomes routine. Over time, discipline becomes part of who you are. The power of routine. One of the most effective ways to build discipline is through routine. A routine removes the need for constant decision-making. Instead of asking yourself whether to act, you simply follow a predetermined plan. This reduces mental resistance. When something becomes part of your routine, it no longer feels optional. It becomes automatic. You do it not because you feel like it, but because it's what you do. This is why successful people rely heavily on routines. They don't depend on motivation. They create systems that make disciplined action easier and more consistent, starting small to stay consistent. A common mistake in building discipline is starting too big. People set ambitious goals and try to make drastic changes all at once. They push themselves hard in the beginning, fueled by motivation. But when that motivation fades, the effort becomes unsustainable. They burn out. Discipline is not built through extreme effort. It is built through sustainable consistency. This is why starting small is essential. Choose actions that are manageable, even on your worst days. Focus on consistency rather than intensity. It's better to do a little every day than to do a lot once in a while. Small actions build habits. Habits build discipline. Removing friction. Discipline becomes easier when you remove obstacles. If something is difficult to start, you are less likely to do it, especially when motivation is low. This is why reducing friction is so important. Make your environment support your goals. If you want to exercise, prepare your workout clothes in advance. If you want to work on a project, eliminate distractions. If you want to build a habit, make it as easy as possible to begin. The easier it is to start, the more likely you are to stay consistent. And consistency is what builds discipline. The role of identity. Discipline is not just about what you do. It's about who you believe you are. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, your actions begin to align with that belief. You don't have to force yourself as much because your behavior becomes a reflection of your identity. This is why identity is so powerful. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," shift to, "I am someone who shows up." This subtle change reinforces your behavior. Each time you act in alignment with this identity, you strengthen it. Over time, discipline becomes natural. Handling bad days. No matter how disciplined you become, there will be bad days. Days when you feel tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. Days when everything feels harder than usual. The goal is not to avoid these days. The goal is to handle them correctly. On bad days, lower the intensity, but not the standard. Do something, even if it's small. Show up, even if it's not your best performance. Maintain the habit, even if the effort is minimal. This keeps the chain unbroken. It preserves your momentum. And most importantly, it reinforces your identity as someone who does not quit. Discipline and self-respect. Every time you follow through on your commitments, you build self-respect. You prove to yourself that your goals matter. You show that you can be trusted to do what you say you will do. This creates a deeper form of confidence, not the kind that comes from external validation, but the kind that comes from within. On the other hand, when you constantly break promises to yourself, your self-trust weakens. You begin to doubt your ability to follow through. Discipline restores that trust. It strengthens your relationship with yourself. The long-term advantage. Discipline may not feel exciting in the moment. It doesn't provide the immediate thrill that motivation does. It's quiet, steady, and often unnoticed. But over time, it creates a massive advantage. While others rely on bursts of motivation and struggle with inconsistency, disciplined individuals continue to make progress. Day by day, step by step, they move forward. This consistency compounds. What seems like small effort in the short term becomes extraordinary results in the long term. This is the power of discipline. From discipline to freedom. Ironically, discipline is what creates freedom. At first, it may feel restrictive. You are committing to certain actions, following routines, and holding yourself accountable. But over time, this structure creates flexibility. Because you are consistent, you gain control over your time, your habits, and your results. You are no longer controlled by your moods or impulses. You become in control. Discipline gives you the freedom to live life on your own terms. Motivation will come and go. There will be days when you feel unstoppable, and days when you feel like giving up. This is natural. It is part of the process. But your success cannot depend on something so unpredictable. It must depend on discipline. The ability to show up, no matter how you feel. The commitment to your goals, even when progress is slow. The decision to keep going, even when it's hard. Start small. Stay consistent. Build routines. Reduce friction. Strengthen your identity. And most importantly, Keep showing up. Because in the end, it's not motivation that determines your success. It's what you do when motivation fades. Chapter 5. The Habit Loop of High Achievers. Success is rarely the result of one big decision. It is the outcome of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of small decisions made consistently over time. These decisions eventually become habits, and those habits shape the direction of your life. High achievers are not simply more talented or more motivated than others. What truly sets them apart is their ability to build and maintain powerful habits that support their goals. At the center of this lies something deeply psychological and incredibly practical: the habit loop. Understanding this loop and learning how to design it intentionally can transform the way you live, work, and grow. What is the habit loop? Every habit follows a pattern. Whether it's something productive like exercising or something unproductive like procrastinating, the structure remains the same. This structure is known as the habit loop, and it consists of three core components: cue, routine, reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself, the action you take. The reward is the benefit you gain from completing the behavior. This loop operates automatically, often without conscious awareness. Over time, it becomes deeply ingrained, making behaviors feel natural and effortless. High achievers understand this system, whether consciously or intuitively. They don't rely on willpower alone. They design their habits to work with this loop, not against it. The power of awareness. Before you can change your habits, you need to become aware of them. Most habits operate in the background. You don't think about them, you just do them. This is what makes them powerful, but also what makes them difficult to change. The first step is to observe your behavior. What triggers your actions? When do you feel the urge to procrastinate? What routines do you follow without thinking? What rewards are you seeking? By identifying the cues and rewards behind your habits, you begin to understand why they exist. And once you understand them, you can start to reshape them. Designing effective cues. The cue is where every habit begins. If the cue is weak or inconsistent, the habit will struggle to form. If the cue is strong and clear, the habit becomes easier to repeat. High achievers are intentional about their cues. They don't leave their habits to chance. They create environments and routines that trigger the behaviors they want. For example, instead of relying on memory or motivation, they tie habits to specific moments. After waking up, they begin their morning routine. After finishing a task, they review their progress. At a certain time each day, they focus on deep work. These cues create structure. They remove the need for decision-making. When the cue appears, the action follows. Simplifying the routine. The routine is the behavior itself. This is where most people struggle. They set goals that are too complex, too demanding, or too difficult to maintain. As a result, they become inconsistent. High achievers take a different approach. They simplify their routines. Instead of aiming for perfection, they focus on consistency. They break down their actions into manageable steps that can be repeated daily. A simple routine is easier to start, and once you start, you are more likely to continue. This is why small habits are so powerful. They lower resistance. They make action feel accessible. Over time, these small routines can grow into more advanced behaviors, but only after consistency is established. The importance of reward. The reward is what reinforces the habit. Without a reward, there is no reason for your brain to repeat the behavior. The reward creates a positive association, making the habit more appealing over time. But not all rewards are obvious. Sometimes the reward is physical, like feeling energized after exercise. Sometimes it is emotional, like the satisfaction of completing a task. Sometimes it is psychological, like the sense of progress or control. High achievers understand the importance of recognizing and reinforcing these rewards. They don't wait for big achievements to feel satisfied. They acknowledge small wins. They celebrate progress. This keeps the habit loop alive. It keeps the behavior consistent. Replacing, not removing. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to change habits is focusing on elimination. They try to stop a behavior without replacing it. But habits don't disappear easily. The loop remains. The cue and the reward still exist. If you remove the routine without replacing it, your mind will find another behavior to fill the gap. This is why replacement is key. Instead of trying to eliminate a bad habit, replace the routine with a better one that satisfies the same reward. For example, if stress triggers unhealthy eating, replace it with a short walk or deep breathing. If boredom leads to scrolling on your phone, replace it with reading or learning something new. The cue remains the same, the reward remains the same, but the routine changes. This is how lasting change happens. Consistency over intensity. High achievers do not rely on bursts of effort. They rely on consistency. A habit is not formed by doing something once or twice. It is formed through repetition. The more you repeat a behavior, the stronger the neural connection becomes. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It's better to perform a small habit every day than a large one occasionally. Repetition strengthens the loop. It makes the behavior automatic. Over time, the habit requires less effort. It becomes part of your identity. The role of environment. Your environment plays a significant role in shaping your habits. It can either support your goals or work against them. High achievers design their environment to make good habits easier and bad habits harder. They remove distractions. They organize their space. They create visual cues that remind them of their goals. For example, keeping a book visible encourages reading. Placing healthy food within reach promotes better eating habits. Removing unnecessary apps reduces distractions. Environment influences behavior more than motivation. When your surroundings support your habits, discipline becomes easier. The identity connection. The most powerful habits are tied to identity. High achievers don't just focus on what they want to achieve, they focus on who they want to become. This changes everything. Instead of saying, "I want to exercise," they say, "I am someone who takes care of my health." Instead of saying, "I want to be productive," they say, "I am someone who values focus and discipline." This identity-based approach strengthens the habit loop. Each time you perform the habit, you reinforce your identity. Each repetition becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, the behavior becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Breaking the cycle of inconsistency. Inconsistency is often the result of a broken habit loop. Maybe the cue is unclear. Maybe the routine is too difficult. Maybe the reward is not satisfying enough. To fix inconsistency, you need to adjust the loop. Make the cue more obvious. Make the routine easier. Make the reward more meaningful. Small adjustments can have a big impact. The goal is to create a loop that works with your psychology, not against it. The long-term impact. The habit loop may seem simple, but its impact is profound. It shapes your daily actions. It influences your decisions. It determines your progress. Over time, your habits become your lifestyle, and your lifestyle determines your results. High achievers understand this. They don't rely on occasional effort. They build systems of habits that guide their behavior consistently. They trust the process. They know that if they maintain the right habits, the results will follow. Success is not built on isolated moments of effort. It is built on repeated actions that become habits, and those habits are shaped by the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. If you want to change your life, don't focus only on big goals. Focus on your habits. Understand your triggers. Simplify your actions. Reinforce your progress. Design your environment. Align your behavior with your identity. Small changes in your habit loop can lead to massive changes in your life. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, and your habits are the system that determines everything. Chapter 6. Winning the Morning, Winning the Day. How you start your morning shapes how you live your day. Before the world begins to demand your attention, before notifications, responsibilities, and distractions take over, you are given a small window of time that belongs entirely to you. What you do with that time has the power to influence your focus, your energy, your mindset, and ultimately, your results. Most people underestimate this. They treat mornings casually. They wake up late, rush through their routines, react to their phones, and start the day already behind. Their mornings are driven by urgency instead of intention. And because of this, their entire day feels reactive, scattered, and unfocused. High achievers approach mornings differently. They understand a simple truth. If you win the morning, you increase your chances of winning the day. The first moments matter. The first moments after you wake up are more powerful than they seem. Your mind is fresh. Your environment is quiet. Your willpower is at its highest. This is a unique state, a moment of clarity before the noise of the world begins. What you do in this window sets the tone for everything that follows. If you start your day with distraction, you train your mind to be reactive. If you start with intention, you train your mind to be focused. This is why your morning routine matters. It is not just about productivity, it is about direction. From reaction to intention. Most people begin their day in reaction mode. They check their phone, they scroll through messages, they respond to notifications. Within minutes of waking up, their attention is pulled in multiple directions. This creates a scattered mindset. Instead of choosing how to spend their energy, they allow external inputs to dictate their focus. The day begins with distraction, and that pattern often continues. Winning the morning means shifting from reaction to intention. It means deciding how you want to think, feel, and act before the world makes that decision for you. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Creating a morning routine. A strong morning routine does not need to be complicated. In fact, the simpler it is, the more sustainable it becomes. The goal is not to do everything. The goal is to do what matters. An effective morning routine usually includes 3 key elements. 1. Mental clarity. Take time to clear your mind. This could be through reflection, journaling, or simply sitting in silence. The purpose is to create space before the day fills it with noise. 2. Physical activation. Move your body. This could be exercise, stretching, or even a short walk. Physical movement increases energy, improves focus, and prepares your body for the day ahead. 3. Intentional focus. Set your direction. Identify what matters most for the day. Decide what you will prioritize. This creates clarity and prevents distraction later. These elements do not require hours. Even a short, consistent routine can make a significant difference. The power of consistency. The effectiveness of a morning routine is not determined by its length or complexity. It is determined by consistency. A simple routine performed daily is more powerful than an elaborate routine done occasionally. Consistency builds habits. Habits reduce decision-making, and when your morning becomes habitual, it requires less effort to maintain. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. This is what makes it sustainable. Protecting your morning. Your morning is valuable, and like anything valuable, it needs to be protected. Distractions are everywhere. Notifications, social media, emails, they all compete for your attention. If you allow them into your morning, they will take control of it. High achievers set boundaries. They delay distractions. They create space for their routine. They treat their morning as a priority, not an afterthought. This doesn't mean you have to eliminate everything. It means being intentional about what you allow into your day and when. The mental advantage. Winning the morning gives you a mental advantage. When you start your day with clarity and intention, you feel more in control. You are less likely to be overwhelmed by unexpected challenges. You approach tasks with focus instead of confusion. This mental state carries throughout the day. Even when things don't go as planned, you are better equipped to handle them. You are grounded. You are prepared. You are less reactive. This is the hidden power of a strong morning. It doesn't just improve your productivity, it strengthens your mindset, building discipline early. Your morning is also the perfect time to build discipline. It is a controlled environment, fewer distractions, fewer interruptions, more control over your time. When you consistently follow your morning routine, you reinforce a powerful habit, showing up. This sets the tone for the rest of the day. If you start your day with discipline, it becomes easier to maintain that discipline later. Your actions create momentum. Your mindset aligns with your behavior. Discipline in the morning leads to discipline throughout the day. The ripple effect. The impact of a strong morning routine extends beyond the morning itself. It influences your decisions, your energy, and your focus throughout the day. When you start your day well, you are more likely to make better choices. Stay consistent with your habits. Manage your time effectively. Handle stress more calmly. This creates a ripple effect. One intentional morning leads to a productive day. A productive day leads to progress, and consistent progress leads to long-term success. Adapting to your life. There is no single perfect morning routine. What works for one person may not work for another. Your routine should fit your lifestyle, your goals, and your responsibilities. The key is to find what works for you and stick with it. Start small. Experiment. Adjust as needed. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. Overcoming resistance. Even with the best intentions, there will be days when you don't feel like following your routine. You may feel tired. You may feel unmotivated. You may want to stay in bed or skip your habits. This is normal. The solution is not to rely on motivation. It is to rely on discipline. Remind yourself why your morning matters. Focus on the long-term benefits, not the short-term comfort. And most importantly, keep your routine simple enough that you can follow it even on difficult days. Show up, even if it's not perfect. The quiet advantage. One of the most underrated aspects of mornings is the silence. Before the world becomes busy, there is a quiet space that allows for deep thinking, reflection, and focus. This is where clarity is built. This is where ideas are formed. This is where you connect with your goals without distraction. High achievers value this time. They use it to think, plan, and prepare, not just to react. From morning to mastery, winning the morning is not about perfection. It's about intention. It's about starting your day with purpose instead of randomness. It's about taking control before distractions take over. Over time, this simple practice leads to mastery. You become more focused, more disciplined, more consistent, and these qualities extend beyond your mornings. They become part of who you are. Your morning is an opportunity to set the tone, to build momentum, to align your actions with your goals. You don't need a perfect routine. You don't need hours of free time. You just need intention. Start your day with clarity. Move your body. Focus your mind. Protect your time. Do it consistently. Because when you win the morning, you don't just improve your day, you improve your life. One morning at a time. Chapter 7. Beating Procrastination, One Step at a Time. Procrastination is one of the most common and frustrating challenges in personal growth. You know what needs to be done. You've made the plan. You've set the goal. And yet, when the moment comes to take action, something holds you back. You delay. You distract yourself. You tell yourself you'll start later. But later often turns into never. This is not because you are lazy. Procrastination is not a character flaw. It is a psychological response. And to overcome it, you need to understand it. Why we procrastinate. At its core, procrastination is about avoidance. When a task feels overwhelming, uncertain, boring, or uncomfortable, your mind tries to protect you by delaying it. It seeks immediate relief by turning to something easier or more enjoyable. This creates a short-term reward. You feel better in the moment because you've avoided the discomfort, but this relief is temporary. The task doesn't disappear. It remains, often growing larger in your mind. Over time, this creates a cycle. You delay the task. You feel temporary relief. The pressure builds. You feel more stress. You delay even more. Breaking this cycle requires a different approach. The problem with all or nothing. One of the biggest reasons procrastination persists is the all or nothing mindset. You tell yourself that you need to do everything perfectly or make significant progress in one sitting. The task feels huge, the pressure increases, and as a result, you avoid starting altogether. This mindset creates unnecessary resistance. Instead of seeing a task as something you can begin, you see it as something you must complete, and completion feels overwhelming. The solution is simple, but powerful. Stop focusing on finishing. Start focusing on starting. The power of one step. The most effective way to beat procrastination is to make the task smaller. Not just smaller, but almost impossible to resist. Instead of saying, "I need to work for 2 hours," say, "I will work for 5 minutes." Instead of saying, "I need to finish this project," say, "I will start the first step." This reduces resistance. It removes the pressure of perfection and replaces it with action. And once you start, something important happens. Momentum begins. Starting changes everything. The hardest part of any task is starting. Before you begin, your mind exaggerates the difficulty. It imagines the effort, the discomfort, the time it will take. This creates hesitation. But once you start, reality replaces imagination. The task often feels easier than expected. The resistance fades, your focus improves. And what began as a small step can turn into meaningful progress. This is why starting is so powerful. It breaks the cycle of avoidance. It creates momentum. The 2-minute rule, a simple and effective strategy to overcome procrastination, is the 2-minute rule. If a task feels overwhelming, reduce it to something that takes 2 minutes or less. Open the document. Write 1 sentence. Organize 1 small section. Read 1 page. The goal is not to complete the task. The goal is to begin. This small action lowers resistance and makes it easier to continue. And often, once you've started, you naturally keep going. Removing emotional weight. Procrastination is not just about tasks. It's about emotions. Tasks that carry emotional weight, fear, uncertainty, self-doubt, are more likely to be avoided. You may worry about failure, judgment, or not meeting your own expectations. This emotional pressure makes the task feel heavier than it actually is. To overcome this, separate the task from the emotion. Focus on the action itself, not the outcome. Instead of thinking, "This needs to be perfect," think, "I just need to make progress." Instead of thinking, "What if I fail?" think, "What is the next step I can take?" This shift reduces pressure. It makes action feel safer. Creating a starting ritual. One of the most effective ways to beat procrastination is to create a starting ritual. A starting ritual is a simple, repeatable action that signals the beginning of work. It could be sitting at your workspace, opening your tools, setting a timer, taking a deep breath. This ritual removes the need to decide when to start. It creates a clear transition from thinking to doing. Over time, your mind begins to associate the ritual with action. It becomes easier to begin because the decision has already been made. The role of environment. Your environment plays a significant role in procrastination. Distractions make it easy to avoid work. A cluttered space can feel overwhelming. Easy access to entertainment can pull your attention away. To reduce procrastination, design your environment for focus. Remove unnecessary distractions. Keep your workspace organized. Make your tools easily accessible. Limit access to things that pull your attention away. When your environment supports your goals, it becomes easier to take action. Progress over perfection. Perfection is one of the biggest drivers of procrastination. When you feel the need to do something perfectly, you increase the pressure. The task feels more difficult, more time-consuming, and more intimidating. This leads to avoidance. The solution is to prioritize progress over perfection. Allow yourself to do imperfect work. Focus on completing the first version, not the final version. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Progress creates momentum. Perfection creates pressure. Choose progress. Building consistency. Beating procrastination is not about one-time effort. It's about building a pattern of consistent action. Each time you choose to start, even in a small way, you weaken the habit of procrastination. You prove to yourself that you can take action despite resistance. Over time, this becomes your default behavior. Instead of delaying, you begin. Instead of avoiding, you act. Consistency transforms your relationship with work. Handling setbacks. There will be days when you procrastinate, days when you avoid tasks, lose focus, or fall back into old patterns. This is part of the process. The goal is not to eliminate procrastination completely. The goal is to reduce its impact. When you notice yourself procrastinating, don't judge yourself. Don't dwell on it. Simply return to the next step. The faster you recover, the less power procrastination has over you. The confidence connection. Every time you overcome procrastination, you build confidence. You show yourself that you can act, even when it's difficult. You reinforce the belief that you are capable of progress. This confidence makes future action easier. On the other hand, repeated procrastination weakens confidence. It creates doubt and reinforces avoidance. This is why small wins matter. Each small step is not just progress. It is proof that you can do what you set out to do. The long-term shift. Beating procrastination is not about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about changing how you approach action. From overwhelm, simplicity. Delay to immediate action. Perfection, progress. Avoidance, engagement. This shift takes time, but with consistent effort, it becomes natural. You begin to act without overthinking. You start tasks with less resistance. You build momentum more easily. And over time, procrastination loses its grip. Procrastination is not something you defeat in one moment. It is something you overcome, one step at a time. Small actions, simple beginnings, consistent effort. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to start. Take one step, then another, because in the end, progress is not built on perfect moments. It is built on the willingness to begin, even when it's hard. And that is how you beat procrastination. One step at a time. Chapter 8. Turning failure into feedback. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people fear it. They avoid it. They see it as a sign that something has gone wrong, or worse, that they have gone wrong. Failure is often associated with embarrassment, disappointment, and self-doubt. It feels like an ending, a confirmation that you are not good enough, not capable enough, or not meant for success. But this interpretation is flawed. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process. And when understood correctly, failure becomes one of the most powerful tools for growth. The meaning we attach to failure. Failure itself is neutral. It is simply an outcome that did not match your expectation. It is a result, not a judgment. What gives failure its emotional weight is the meaning you attach to it. If you see failure as proof of your limitations, it will discourage you. It will create fear and hesitation. It will make you avoid challenges and play it safe. But if you see failure as feedback, everything changes. It becomes information. It becomes guidance. It becomes a tool that helps you improve. The same experience can either stop you or strengthen you, depending on how you interpret it. The fear of getting it wrong. One of the main reasons people struggle with failure is the fear of getting it wrong. This fear often begins early in life. We are taught to seek correct answers, to avoid mistakes, and to value perfection. Over time, this creates a mindset where failure feels unacceptable. As a result, many people stop trying new things. They avoid risks. They stay in their comfort zone. They choose safety over growth. But this comes at a cost. Without failure, there is no learning. Without learning, there is no progress. The path to improvement is not a straight line. It is a series of attempts, adjustments, and refinements. Failure as a teacher. Failure has something that success does not: clarity. When something doesn't work, it forces you to pay attention. It reveals gaps in your knowledge, weaknesses in your approach, and areas that need improvement. Success can sometimes hide these gaps. Failure exposes them. This is why failure is such a powerful teacher. It gives you specific, actionable feedback. It shows you what to change. It points you in a better direction, but only if you are willing to learn from it. Separating identity from outcome. One of the most important shifts you can make is separating your identity from your outcomes. Failing at something does not mean you are a failure. It means that a specific attempt did not produce the desired result. This distinction is crucial. When you tie your identity to your results, every failure feels personal. It affects your self-worth. It creates fear and discouragement. But when you separate the two, failure becomes less threatening. It becomes something you experience, not something you are. This creates emotional freedom. You are able to take risks, make mistakes, and learn without damaging your confidence. The feedback mindset. Turning failure into feedback requires a specific mindset. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" ask, "What worked? What didn't work? What can I improve? What will I do differently next time?" These questions shift your focus from judgment to learning. They turn failure into a source of information. This mindset is what allows high achievers to grow faster. They don't avoid failure. They use it. The iteration process. Growth is not about getting things right the first time. It is about iteration. You try something. You observe the result. You adjust. You try again. Each attempt brings you closer to improvement. Failure is simply part of this process. It is the feedback that guides your next step. Without it, you would not know what to change. Iteration requires patience. It requires persistence, but it is the most reliable path to progress. Emotional resilience. Even with the right mindset, failure can still be difficult. It can trigger frustration, disappointment, and self-doubt. These emotions are natural. The goal is not to eliminate them. The goal is to manage them. Emotional resilience is the ability to experience these feelings without being controlled by them. It is the ability to stay grounded, reflect objectively, and continue moving forward. This takes practice. It requires awareness, patience, and self-compassion. But over time, it becomes easier. You begin to see failure not as something to fear, but as something to navigate. The role of persistence. Turning failure into feedback is only valuable if you continue. If you stop after one failure, you lose the opportunity to apply what you've learned. Persistence is what allows feedback to become progress. Each attempt builds on the previous one. Each failure provides new information. Each adjustment brings you closer to success. Most people quit too early. They experience failure and assume it means they should stop. But those who succeed understand that failure is not a signal to quit. It is a signal to adjust, reframing setbacks. A setback is not a dead end. It is a detour. It may slow you down. It may force you to change direction, but it does not prevent you from reaching your destination. When you reframe setbacks in this way, they lose their power. They become part of the journey. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" This shift transforms your perspective. It turns obstacles into opportunities. Building confidence through failure. It may seem counterintuitive, but failure can build confidence. Each time you face a setback and continue, you prove something to yourself. You can handle difficulty. You can recover. You can learn. This creates a deeper form of confidence. Not the kind based on success alone, but the kind based on resilience. You begin to trust yourself, not because you always succeed, but because you know you can keep going. The long-term advantage. In the short term, failure feels uncomfortable, but in the long term, it creates an advantage. Those who avoid failure may feel safe, but they grow slowly. They miss opportunities to learn and improve. Those who embrace failure grow faster. They gain experience. They develop adaptability. They build resilience. Over time, this creates a gap. The person who learns from failure becomes stronger, more capable, and more prepared for future challenges. From fear to curiosity. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is moving from fear to curiosity. Instead of fearing failure, become curious about it. What will I learn? How can I improve? What will this experience teach me? Curiosity reduces pressure. It makes the process more engaging. It turns failure into exploration. And when you are curious, you are more likely to continue. Final thoughts. Failure is not something to avoid. It is something to understand. It is not a sign that you should stop. It is a signal that you are learning. When you shift your perspective, failure becomes feedback. Feedback becomes improvement. Improvement leads to progress, and progress leads to success. So don't fear failure. Learn from it. Use it. Grow through it. Because in the end, failure is not what holds you back. It is what moves you forward, if you choose to see it that way. Chapter 9. Designing your daily win system. Success is not built in a single moment. It is built in days. And not just any days, but intentional, structured, repeatable days that move you forward, even when motivation is low and circumstances are not perfect. Most people approach their days reactively. They wake up without a clear plan, respond to whatever comes their way, and hope that by the end of the day, they've made progress. Sometimes they do. Often they don't. This inconsistency is not a lack of effort. It is a lack of system. High achievers do not rely on chance. They don't leave progress up to how they feel or what happens around them. They design systems that guarantee forward movement. One of the most powerful of these systems is what we can call a daily win system, a structure that ensures, no matter how the day unfolds, you walk away with progress. What is a daily win? A daily win is simple. It is a meaningful action completed within a day that moves you closer to your goal. Not something massive, not something perfect, just something that counts. The purpose of a daily win is not to achieve everything, it is to ensure you achieve something. Because something, repeated daily, becomes everything over time. Why most days feel unproductive. Many people end their day feeling like they didn't accomplish enough. Even if they were busy, even if they worked hard. This happens because activity is not the same as progress. You can spend hours doing tasks that feel urgent but are not important. You can react to emails, messages, and distractions all day without moving closer to your goals. This creates a false sense of productivity. You were active but not effective. A daily win system solves this by defining what actually matters. Defining your win. The first step in designing your system is clarity. What does a win look like for you? This will depend on your goals. A win could be completing a key task, making progress on a project, practicing a skill, taking a step toward a long-term goal. The key is that it must be meaningful, not just busy work, not just checking boxes, but something that genuinely moves you forward. The rule of one. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to do too much. They create long to-do lists filled with tasks, responsibilities, and goals. By the end of the day, they feel overwhelmed and often incomplete. The daily win system simplifies this. It focuses on one primary win per day. This does not mean you only do one thing. It means you define one thing that truly matters. If everything else fails, this is the task that ensures the day was successful. This creates clarity. It reduces overwhelm, and it increases focus. Designing your day around the win. Once you define your daily win, your day should be built around it. Instead of fitting your goals into your day, you fit your day around your goals. This requires intention. Ask yourself, when will I complete my win? What time of day am I most focused? What distractions need to be minimized? High achievers often prioritize their most important task early in the day, before distractions take over. They protect that time. They treat it as non-negotiable, because once the win is completed, the rest of the day becomes easier. The minimum standard. Not every day will be perfect. Some days you will have more energy, more time, and more focus. Other days will be difficult. This is why your system needs a minimum standard. Your minimum standard is the smallest version of your win that still counts. For example, if your goal is to write, your minimum could be 1 paragraph. If your goal is to exercise, your minimum could be 10 minutes. If your goal is to study, your minimum could be 1 page. This ensures consistency. Even on your worst days, you still move forward. And consistency is what creates long-term success. Tracking your wins. What gets tracked gets improved. Tracking your daily wins creates awareness and accountability. It allows you to see your progress over time. It reinforces your effort and it builds momentum. This does not need to be complicated. A simple checklist, journal, or calendar is enough. Each day you complete your win, mark it. Over time, these marks become a visual representation of your consistency. And that consistency becomes your strength. The psychological impact. A daily win system does more than improve productivity. It changes how you feel about yourself. Each completed win creates a sense of accomplishment. It builds confidence. It reinforces the belief that you are capable of progress. This creates a positive feedback loop. You complete a win, you feel good about your progress. You become more motivated. You continue taking action. Over time, this loop becomes self-sustaining. You no longer rely on external motivation. You rely on your system. Eliminating decision fatigue. One of the hidden benefits of a daily win system is that it reduces decision fatigue. Instead of constantly asking, "What should I do next?" you already know. Your priority is clear. This frees up mental energy. It allows you to focus on execution instead of decision-making. And when your mind is focused, your performance improves. Flexibility within structure. A good system is structured, but not rigid. Life is unpredictable. Some days will not go as planned. Your system should be strong enough to guide you, but flexible enough to adapt. If you miss your ideal time, Adjust. If your day becomes busy, use your minimum standard. If something unexpected happens, focus on doing something instead of nothing. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency, avoiding the all or nothing trap. One missed day does not define you. One imperfect performance does not erase your progress. The danger is not failure. The danger is quitting after failure. If you miss a day, don't overthink it. Return the next day. Continue the system. Progress is not about never falling off track. It is about getting back on track quickly. Building identity through daily wins. Your daily actions shape your identity. When you consistently complete your daily wins, you begin to see yourself differently. You become someone who follows through, someone who shows up, someone who makes progress, regardless of circumstances. This identity is powerful, because once you believe it, you act in alignment with it, and your actions reinforce it. The compounding effect. A single day may not seem significant, but days add up. One win becomes 2, 2 become 10, 10 become 100. Over time, these small daily actions compound into massive results. This is how transformation happens, not through one big moment, but through consistent daily progress. From chaos to control. Without a system, your days are reactive. With a system, your days become intentional. You move from chaos to control, from randomness to structure, from inconsistency to progress. This shift is subtle but powerful. It changes how you approach your time, your goals, and your life. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You need a system. A simple, clear, repeatable structure that ensures progress every day. Define your win. Focus on one meaningful action. Set a minimum standard. Track your progress. Stay consistent. Because success is not built in a single breakthrough, it is built in daily wins. And when you design your days intentionally, you don't just hope for progress, you guarantee it. Chapter 10. Becoming the person who never quits. There is one trait that separates those who eventually succeed from those who don't. It is not talent. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is the decision to keep going. In a world where most people start but few finish, the ability to persist, to continue despite difficulty, doubt, and discomfort, is what defines long-term success. Anyone can begin a journey when motivation is high and the path feels clear, but very few continue when things become uncertain, slow, or challenging. Becoming the person who never quits is not about never struggling. It is about never stopping, the reality of the journey. Every meaningful goal comes with resistance. There will be days when progress feels slow, days when nothing seems to work, days when you question your decisions, your abilities, and even your purpose. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are on a real path. Growth is not smooth. It is unpredictable, messy, and often uncomfortable. The expectation that success should feel easy is one of the biggest reasons people quit too soon. When reality does not match expectation, discouragement follows. But those who persist understand something different. Difficulty is not a barrier. It is part of the process. Why people quit. To become someone who never quits, you must understand why people quit in the first place. Most people do not quit because they are incapable. They quit because of emotional pressure. The frustration of slow progress, the fear of failure, the discomfort of effort, the doubt in their abilities, the comparison with others. These emotions build over time, and without the right mindset, they become overwhelming. Quitting becomes a way to escape discomfort. It provides immediate relief, but it also ends the possibility of progress. The power of commitment. Motivation is temporary. Commitment is permanent. When you rely on motivation, your actions depend on how you feel. When you rely on commitment, Your actions depend on your decision. Commitment means you have already decided that you will continue, no matter how long it takes, no matter how difficult it becomes, no matter how you feel. This decision removes uncertainty. It creates stability, and it gives you a foundation to stand on when everything else feels unstable. Redefining quitting. Quitting is often misunderstood. People think quitting means stopping completely, but quitting can also happen in smaller ways. Skipping actions repeatedly, lowering your standards, avoiding challenges, giving up mentally before physically. These subtle forms of quitting are just as damaging. They slowly disconnect you from your goals. To become someone who never quits, you must recognize these patterns, and you must choose differently. The no matter what mindset. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is adopting a no matter what mindset. This does not mean ignoring reality or pushing yourself to exhaustion. It means committing to continued effort, regardless of circumstances. No matter how you feel, you show up. No matter how small the progress, you continue. No matter how many setbacks you face, you keep moving forward. This mindset removes the option of quitting, and when quitting is no longer an option, persistence becomes the default. Building mental toughness. Mental toughness is not something you are born with. It is something you build. Each time you push through discomfort, you strengthen it. Each time you continue despite doubt, you reinforce it. Each time you choose effort over ease, you develop it. Mental toughness grows through experience. It is built in moments when quitting feels like the easiest choice, but you choose to continue. Over time, these moments shape your character. They define who you are. The role of discipline. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation fades. It is the habit of showing up, even when you don't feel like it. It is the structure that supports your commitment. Without discipline, persistence becomes difficult. With discipline, it becomes sustainable. This is why daily habits matter. They create a foundation. They make action consistent, and they reduce the reliance on willpower. Resilience through setbacks. Setbacks are inevitable. You will face obstacles. You will make mistakes. You will experience failure. The difference is not whether setbacks happen. It is how you respond to them. Resilient individuals do not avoid setbacks. They recover from them. They adapt. They learn. They continue. They understand that a setback is not the end. It is a moment within the journey. The identity shift, becoming someone who never quits, is not just about behavior. It is about identity. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to stay consistent," shift to, "I am someone who does not quit." This identity changes your actions. It creates alignment between who you believe you are and what you do. Each time you continue, you reinforce this identity. Each time you push forward, you strengthen it. Over time, persistence becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Handling doubt. Doubt will appear. It will question your progress. It will challenge your beliefs. It will make you wonder if your efforts are worth it. This is normal. Doubt is part of growth. The key is not to eliminate doubt, but to act despite it. You do not need certainty to continue. You need commitment. Take the next step, even when you are unsure. Clarity often comes after action, not before it. The long-term perspective. One of the most powerful ways to maintain persistence is to think long-term. Short-term thinking leads to impatience. You expect quick results. You become frustrated when progress is slow. You question your efforts. Long-term thinking changes this. You understand that meaningful results take time. You become more patient. You focus on the process, not just the outcome. This perspective reduces pressure. It allows you to stay consistent without constant frustration. Progress over perfection. Perfection is one of the biggest obstacles to persistence. When you aim for perfection, you create pressure. You feel the need to get everything right, and when you don't, you feel discouraged. This can lead to quitting. The solution is to focus on progress. Imperfect action is better than no action. Small steps are better than no steps. Progress keeps you moving. Perfection can keep you stuck. The compounding effect of not quitting. Every time you choose to continue, you gain an advantage. You build experience. You strengthen your mindset. You improve your skills. These gains compound over time. While others stop and restart, you keep moving forward. While others lose momentum, you maintain it. This consistency creates a gap. And over time, that gap becomes significant. The quiet strength. Persistence is not loud. It is not always visible. It is a quiet strength. It is the decision to keep going when no one is watching. It is the discipline to show up when no one is encouraging you. It is the commitment to continue when results are not immediate. This quiet strength is what builds real success. Becoming the person who never quits is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. It is about choosing to continue again and again, regardless of how you feel or what happens. You will face challenges. You will experience doubt. You will have moments where quitting feels easier, but in those moments, you have a choice: to stop or to continue. And every time you choose to continue, you become stronger. You become more resilient. You become closer to your goals. Because in the end, success does not belong to the most talented. It belongs to the one who refused to quit, and that person can be you.